Hi everyone, Linnea here, and today I wanted to share a bit about my sobriety journey with you. And first off, let me just say, it has been a day. You know those days that, they're not particularly bad. It's not like one bad thing happened after the other. It's just like one bad thing happened and it kind of shakes you. And you have a hard time going on with your day because you can't let it go and you just keep replaying it over and over and over again in your head. I'm having one of those days. But I have this awareness that who you are as a person shouldn't change no matter what's going on around you. If you want to be a kind and compassionate person, you can be that kind and compassionate person no matter what the situation on the outside of you is. And I kind of feel like when you meet those kind of situations with anger and frustration and irritability, it only changes you and how you feel, and it makes you feel bad, but it doesn't actually change the person who's hurting you or the situation that's beyond your control. So I'm working on that right now. That's a little bit different than what we're going to talk about today, but it's also something that I probably never would have learned before, because before I got sober, something that kept me really trapped in that alcoholism was not believing that I was worthy, not believing that I deserved better than the situations that I was putting myself in. And so I want to share a little bit of that journey with you today. My journey to sobriety actually started with my alcoholism. And it started when I was 7 years old because I grew up around dysfunction and around alcoholism from certain family members in the communities that I lived in, and even just in the normalcy that alcoholism is in this society. And so when I was 7 years old, I was sexually abused and I never told anyone. And of course, that caused me so much pain and so much hurt. And the easiest thing for me to do was to enter an escape mentality. And so I never told anyone. I kept it a secret. I pretended nothing happened. And anytime it would pop up into my head, in the next 10 years after that, I would kind of just shove it back down and say, no, that never happened. And as a result of that, when I was about 15, 16, I became a blackout drunk. So I would go out, not to have fun, not to party, not to be social, but to escape, to reach a point in my mind that I was no longer coherent and I no longer had to feel pain or be aware of the pain that I carried with me every day. And it took a while for me to realize that that was toxic behavior because, again, I normalized it. I told myself I'm a teenager, it's okay. But when I did reach that point of realizing that this is really serious and you need to get out of this right now, I actually moved myself away from the community that I was in and started living with my mom, who lived in Victoria, BC. And I didn't realize at the time that that pain was going to follow me because, again, I was escaping from something and thinking it was going to get better without actually putting in the work within myself. But I moved and I actually did really well for about a year after I moved. And then I got this devastating news that what happened to me happened to another young girl by the same person. And I felt so much guilt. I felt so responsible for this young woman's suffering that I went to the police and I made a report and I told my family what happened to me. And it was a family friend, so the situation got really complicated, and it was so much to go through. And this was the year that I was graduating, so I was going through so much, and I ended up falling back into some of the same toxic behaviors, and I got into a really controlling relationship. And that relationship felt really good at the time because it felt safe. It felt like that person was someone that I could count on, and that they would never allow anything to happen to me. And anytime I faced that controllingness, that possessiveness, I told myself it's because they love me and they want me to be safe. And I stayed in that relationship for a number of years. The beginning of that relationship, there was a lot of partying, a lot of booze. I got involved in activism and started doing some public speaking. And doing that thing that I was so passionate about really set me off on the right path and really started me on some positive and amazing changes in my life. And I left that relationship and started to pursue this career as a public speaker. And then I met someone who I really have so much love for this person, because they were the first person in my whole life that made me feel like it was okay to be me. They made me feel like they believed in me and that I didn't have to be someone that they wanted me to be in order to feel believed in. And they also really supported the anxieties and the hardships that I'd faced in my life. They always had wisdom to share. They always had ways of healing. I learned a lot about Buddhism, and I learned a lot about different plants and foods that could be really healing on the body. And it was just a really inspiring and transformative relationship for me. And again though, because I still hadn't learned to love myself, when that relationship ended, it ended in a really painful way, because from my perspective, this person has their own story, but from my perspective, that person was going down a dark path and was becoming less and less of the person that I loved. And so I started just to shy away, to ignore, to pretend that everything was going to be okay, that escape mentality, to the point that when we did talk and we did part ways, I pretended that I was okay with it, that yeah, okay, I'm just gonna get on with my life. And of course, that's not how it happened. And I started to drink a lot again. And it was because I thought that that person could take away those gifts that had been shared with me, that they could take away the love I had for myself, because they were taking away their own love from me. And I ran away and I moved to Vancouver. I surrounded myself with toxic people. I drank all the time, and I started to slowly find my way back, because I was involved in culture, and I was working with my dad, who was my best friend, my mentor, someone who inspired me all the time throughout my whole life. And I started to find my own personal identity and spirituality that was unique to me. Who is Linnea? That's what I started to figure out. And as soon as I started to realize who I was, nothing could stop me. And I started to kind of seclude myself. I started to hide out. My friends would ask me to drink and to go out and go to dinner and all that kind of stuff, and I just used avoidance as a safety net, as something that would protect me instead of facing the problems head on. And I actually met this friend who's still a friend of mine today and will always be someone who's really special to me. And he had been sober for 15 years. And I, at that point, was still going out and having occasional drinks. Even though I wasn't drinking as much, I would go out to be social once in a while, and I'd say to myself, oh, it's just one drink, which, as someone who's faced alcoholism, could have turned back down the other path so easily. But I was so inspired when I was hanging out with this person by their own sobriety journey. I looked at them and I said, I'm sober too. I don't drink. And I haven't drank since. And there have been times, there's been ups and downs, and there have been struggles. But the thing that keeps me sober is knowing that I am so deserving of the things that I want to be, the things I aspire to do. I deserve the loving people I have around me today. I met an amazing partner who's also on this sober journey with me, and giving up any of that stuff would mean loving myself less. And it really wasn't until I was ready to accept that love I had for myself that I could get sober. So, if I could leave you with any last words, it's that I want you to know when you struggle, if you're someone right now who's fighting an addiction, no matter what it is, that you can get back to yourself. You are so worthy. You are so deserving. And I could just feel it right here, you know? Like, I don't have the words to say it, but you are so important, and there's a reason you're here. You have a purpose in life. And I really hope that you find that. And I hope that you can believe these words that I'm saying to you right now. Thank you for being with me on this journey.